Shalom. Welcome to our study on the book of Exodus, better known as Shemot. The book of Genesis Bereshit ended with Yosef ruling in Egypt and Jacob's family settling in Goshen. Shemot opens by naming those same sons again of Jacob, counting them in life and in death, and then showing how a new king turns their fruitfulness into an excuse for slavery. Shemot begins in verse 1 as follows. And these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Mizraim with Jacob, each one with his household: Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. And all those who were descendants of Jacob were 70 beings, as Yosef was already in Mizraim. And Yosef died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased very much, multiplied and became very strong, and the land was filled with them. So here we see the book of Shemot is better known by that name because it begins with the names, and that's what it actually means, names. These are the names of the sons of Israel. We see where they are enumerated again. We see where they're mentioned in life, and we see even in death they are mentioned. And this mentioning of them, even after they have died, shows how dear they are to the Creator, even when they were gone in exile. Of note is verse 5 that says Yosef was already in Mizraim. But now, as we enter the Exodus, his story is the background because he remained firm in righteousness and became a ruler who planted border posts for his people. So he was the brother that upheld the sustenance of the people of his brothers and his father when they were experiencing the famine back in their land. So by verse 6, we see that all the entire generation died, and Levi was noted elsewhere as the last of the brothers to die. Verse 7 says that the children of Israel were fruitful, they multiplied and became very strong. And on top of that, the women were fertile. Now, some believe that these women would have, when they're pregnant, they would have twins, triplets, quadruplets, even six at a time. But the point is that they experienced explosive growth in their birth rates. And this fulfills the promise that the Creator extended to Abram, saying that even when your people will be in a foreign land, He will multiply them greatly. Israel is remembered by name and treated as special, as precious seed, fulfilling the promises to the fathers. We'll read verses 8 to 14. Then a new sovereign arose over Mizraim who did not know Yosef. And he said to his people, See, the people of the children of Israel are more and stronger than we. Come, let us act wisely towards them, lest they increase. And it shall be when fighting befalls us, that they shall join our enemies and fight against us, and shall go up out of the land. So they set slave masters over them to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh supply cities, Pithom and Rahamses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they increased and grew, and they were in dread of the children of Israel. And the Mizrahites made the children of Israel serve with harshness, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick, and in all kinds of work in the field. All their work which they made was with harshness. So we see the rise of a new Pharaoh, and we saw that came with oppression. This new king did not know Yosef, and it could mean that there was a new dynasty, or at least a king who chose to ignore the legacy of Yosef. And in verse 10, the idea was, come, let us act wisely towards them. Let's deal with them wisely. But I'm wondering what kind of wise plan could be formulated that includes the oppression of the children of Israel. Sometimes man come up with ideas and it's to their detriment. We remember this generation of the flood, trying to secure themselves and build, but end up cursing their, their own own prospects. But this Pharaoh seemed to have had a fear because he said, they shall join our enemies and fight against us and shall go up out of the land. And this is exactly what the Creator intended for them to go up out of the land. We see in verse 11, the taskmasters, they they were like tax collectors of labor. They forced Israel to build supply cities for Pharaoh. Pithom and Ramses were cities maybe for known for other purpose, but they decided to make these cities uh, cities of supply. You know, they turned this into tools of exploitation, this extra work. But what happened is that it was flipped because in verse 12 we see the more they afflicted it, the more they multiplied and spread. The Creator is set on making them increase. Oppression becomes the fertilizer for for having thorns in their eyes. Verses 13 and 14 actually expounds on the crushing labor and hardship that they faced. They got and this was really to break the body, more hard field service. So the aim of these taskmasters was not just to be productive. I believe it was more to crush the spirit and the bodies of the children of Israel. But no schemes against the children of the Creator will have prevailed either. And so when they decided to deal wisely against the Creator's people, he often turns their plans upside down so that persecution only multiplies what they tried to stop. Verse 15. Then the sovereign of Mizraim spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one was Shipra and the name of the other Puah. And he said, when you deliver the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stools, if it's a son, then you shall put him to death, but if it's a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared Elohim and did not do as the sovereign of Mizraim commanded them, and kept the male children alive. So the sovereign of Mizraim called for the midwives and said to them, why have you done this and kept the male children alive? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Mizraim women, for they are likely and lively, and give birth before the midwives come to them. So Elohim was good to the midwives, and the people increased, and they became very numerous. And it came to be, because the midwives feared Elohim, that he provided households for them. The king spoke to the Hebrew midwives, Shifra and Puah, and we note that in Egypt they tried to give the children of Israel their names, and based on all these women devoted to improving the physical condition of the newborns, I would be surprised if these two women were the same, Jochebed and Miriam. He told them, when you help on the bird stool, if it's a son, kill him. If it's a daughter, let her live. But my question is, why target the boys? Is it that he's reading the stars, or maybe he fears a future deliverer? Or is it just he's just having a cold policy, a cruel policy? Men fight in armies, yes, and men carry names. So I think either way, he is aiming at their seed and their strength. Verse 17 says the Hebrew midwives feared the Creator and did not do as the king commanded. That fear of Elohim overrides their royal orders. They assist births instead of ending them. And I'm in support of the multiplication of families because that was the first command. Today, there's so much control over population and governmental interventions and interventions in in the systems to prevent fertility. And, persons are intimidated by the cost of living or discouraged by, the crime in society and the evil in society. And when you look at that, then, it may really scare you. But here we see the Creator's plan is for multiplication, and if He gives life, then He can guide us in terms of how to make our families sustainable. So by quietly disobeying and letting the boys live and using wisdom in their answer, the Hebrew housewives they fear Elohim more than the king, and He rewards them with growth and household. And we see that in verse 21, where He provided households for them, right? The purpose must still be fulfilled even under oppression. Even in a corrupt system, those who protect life can stand as the first crack in an unjust ruler's power. Pharaoh was unjust, but yet still, there were people who stood for righteousness. And even to this day, I believe that there are persons who still stand for righteousness, and righteousness will prevail against evil. Verse 22 says, the closing verse of this chapter, and Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, throw every son who is born into the river, and keep alive every daughter. Every son that is born you shall throw into the Nile, but every daughter you shall let live. This was a royal decree, and it didn't even highlight that it's sons and daughters, sons of Israel, but so it does not exclude the sons of Egypt. And so this ruler was really scared. Well, likely it could be targeting only the Hebrew boys, but it doesn't say that. And the what was to before growth and prosperity we saw where he tried to use a river to become a seed sanctioned grave. So in other words, all the boys he wanted to throw in the water. And the Nile was their god. The Nile was once their source of life, was their source of life. And now Pharaoh was actually using the Nile as a weapon of death. This sets the stage for Shemot chapter 2, our next chapter, where one baby boy is placed into the same river by a mother who refuses to hand him over. And for later, when the river itself will be struck with blood. So there's more to this story, and I'm anxious as we delve deeper into the book of Shemot. I think the Creator's plan of deliverance for his people. The plans of Pharaoh failed, and his decree it was cruel, right? He pressured the specialist midwives, and he wanted to turn the society into agents of a king's fear and filling the Nile with innocent blood. But we know that man's plan does not supersede and rank above the plan of the Creator. So we will be patient as we go into the other chapters and we